11-year-old Chandra climbed through a shower of sparks. One or both of her parents were welding somewhere up the mineshaft from her, and she grinned as the little flecks of fire bounced off her red hair. She climbed hand over hand up the web of scaffolding that clung to the walls of the tunnel. Today was finally the day. Her parents were inventors. Her grandparents had been inventors. Ancestors throughout Chandra's family had been inventors. Today was the day she would finally embrace what had always been her chosen destiny: to become a deliverer of canisters. Inventing had never really been her strong point. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate devices. Her world was full of wondrous inventions and marvels of clicking, gear-driven artificial life. It was just that, somehow, her patience seemed to always end sometime before her projects did. And somehow, sometime during the construction phase, her fist almost invariably wound up colliding with the face of someone who deserved it. It was a personal failing. She accepted it. She had tried other callings. She set her mind to becoming a master artist and had a room full of snapped paintbrushes and ripped canvases to prove it. She had tried applying herself to schoolwork until she was sent home with bruised knuckles and a headmaster's note. She had never quite found her place in a world governed by clockwork and consoles. But today, her true calling would begin. Maybe Chandra would never be a metalsmith like her father, or an ingenious artisan like her mother, but in a world that ran on elegant machines, she could supply the power source, the mystical aether, to those who needed it. The supply of aether was tightly controlled by the consuls, but her parents knew ways of procuring it. They always helped those who needed fuel for their inventive passions. Chandra clambered over the railing onto the platform where her father was at work on one of his own metallic creations. He pushed his thick-lensed goggles up on his head, leaving a raccoon mask of clean skin around his eyes.
Chandra, haven't I told you to keep inside the safety railing? Why did I even build that thing?
It makes a much better ladder.
Chandra said. She hugged his waist.
So, father dearest, I'm ready to go. Did you know? I'm ready to go. I'm informing you now. I'm ready.
Her father rolled his eyes.
I'm not going to try to instill the virtue of patience in you, but I'm not the one to talk to. Your mother has it.
Her mother clanked down a tight coil of stairs, wearing heavy gloves and an embroidered shawl around her hips. She carried a metal canister with all the ceremony of a birthday cake.
Her inaugural solo delivery. Oh, just look at her, Kieran. She's going to burst. Here, daughter, come and help me seal this before the shipment explodes. Or you do.
Chandra's mother set down the canister. The lid shimmered and hissed with a thin jet of effervescent vapor. In the same time it took for her father to gasp a word,
Careful.
Chandra had given the canister a swift kick with her boot. The lid dented in, but it stopped hissing. Chandra grinned.
I can tell already you're going to be the best courier the city has ever seen,
said her mother with a wink. Chandra tipped her chin up like mock royalty.
Please prepare all my medals and trophies for when I return. I'll try to remember you all when I am the world's most important outlaw.
We prefer vehicles of grassroots change, but this is a serious responsibility, Chandra. The consuls have been stepping up patrols. People need what we can provide, but if we bring them trouble, they will turn against our cause. Your mother and I are reaching out to find people we can trust.
Chandra took the canister into her satchel and slung it on her back.
And today we're trusting the old lady who lives by the foundry.
Miss Picheri, yes.
She was always fond of you. Remember, she'll know the signal. Those who know the signal know us for who we truly are. I already know who I am. Chandra, the world's finest courier.
Her mother gave her an awkward hug, patting the canister on her back.
Your father and I believe in you. You know the route. You know the city. You'll do great.
Just be sure no one follows you back here.
Added her father, but Chandra was already climbing. The sun dazzled her eyes. The city of Girapur moved like a living thing, the architecture adapting to the needs of the gear crafters, thopter buildings, clock forgers, and other inventors and artisans who swarmed through it. Chandra struggled her way through the crowd, pulling on a school tunic with her teeth, the canister clanking against her back. The thoroughfare was jammed with too many people. She made a decision and took a perpendicular turn toward the canal. Two halves of a bridge glided to meet each other with a series of metallic clicks, merging to become a span over the canal, and Chandra hopped over the gap before it had completely come together. She diagonaled through the gates of the Accra, a huge, round plaza ringed with tiered seats, skipping across the gears that rotated in the pavement and the raised dais in the center, dodging a clique of jabbering aetherologists. She took two more out-of-the-way turns and stopped at a baked clay wall inlaid with vibrant mosaic tile portraits of great inventors. The surface was sheer and smooth, but she put her boot into a notch above one inventor's nose and clambered over, dropping down onto a pathway painted with slashing stripes. When she hit the ground, a group of soldiers, straight-backed and clean-cut, stood in her path. Consul's forces. They wore standard-issue snap blades strapped to their forearms, and one of them had an aether-charged dart thrower.
Where are you off to, young one? This is a restricted corridor.
He noted Chandra's uniform, a replica of the ones some kids wore to the Builders Institute.
Shouldn't you be in school?
I'm in a hurry, and my examiner will eat me alive if I'm late again. So, if you'll excuse me?
As I'm sure you're aware, miss, this is a restricted corridor,
said a second soldier. The snap blade clicked out from his forearm mount, its edge glittering.
The thoroughfare for pedestrians is back on the other side of the courtyard.
And the school bell already rang. Are you sure you're a student?
You wouldn't be transporting illegal goods, would you?
Hand over the bag, please.
Prickly heat crossed Chandra's brow. She couldn't dodge past them. She couldn't exactly make a run for it.
If I get another demerit, I'm done,
she said, glancing from the soldier's gleaming blade up into his eyes.
Can't you just let me go?
One of them nodded to the other one.
Get out the aether detector.
Chandra shifted her weight away from the one who'd seized her, then jabbed sideways, elbowing another one of the soldiers in the gut. She rebounded and slammed her fist into the collarbone of the first. That was probably a bad idea, she thought an instant after having done it.
But that was fist logic.
The soldiers collapsed on her like a trap. Their hands took hers behind her back, so that she could only look down at the street. She kicked one in the shins and tried to headbutt one in the chest, but she couldn't get free. A flood of heat and fury washed through her, and she clenched her teeth. The soldiers halted. Another set of feet approached.
Captain Baral.
Chandra wrestled to her feet and looked up at him. Captain Baral was a monolith of a man, stout and statuesque, with a face that seemed to taunt those around it for being of lesser handsomeness. The other soldiers stood silently.
What's the problem here? He asked, looking at Chandra but not addressing her, his voice a gravelly whisper. Uncooperative, sir. A possible truant.
We told her this wasn't the thoroughfare for pedestrians.
Captain Brawl smirked down at her.
You have to use small words with these street children. Simple commands. Sit. Stay.
Chandra's hands squeezed into fists. Rage spread through her fast, like a lit box of matches, igniting all the nerves in her body. Heat spread down her arms, into her hands, still held behind her back.
I know you're not a student. Slide the bag off your shoulders and hand it to me.
No.
I don't think you understand, child. You're already in violation of the law in a half-dozen ways. Comply, or I will make you comply.
He put his hand on Chandra's shoulder, gently, but with no tenderness in it. It was a clinical touch, somehow revolting in its cold detachment. Chandra's muscles tensed, and she jerked away, making a sound through her teeth. She wanted to lash out, to yell, to throw her fury at him. And then something happened that had never happened to her before. Her hands glowed from within, illuminating the bones and the blood vessels and the lines in her palm, growing in intensity. The heat erupted through her skin until her hands were engulfed with fire like two torches. Chandra yelped in shock and stood there, dazzled, looking back and forth between her hands as they burned. The soldiers backed away in a semicircle. Captain Brawl stood still, surprise turning to genuine interest. Chandra shook her hands. They didn't go out. She thought about patting them against herself, but thought better of it. She looked to the men, too upset for words, gesturing with her burning hands. Strangely, her skin was not burning. The flames enveloped her hands, but there was no pain. Brawl put his hand out to her again.
Let me help you with that, child.
Get back.
Chandra instinctively waved away the aggressor, creating a blazing arc of fire in the air. The men backed away, and the fire evaporated. And for a moment, everyone just blinked. Chandra burst into a run. She slipped between two of the soldiers, both of whom made an inadequate half motion to stop her, and she was gone. Behind her, she heard Brawl's gravel-throated whisper become a growl.
I want whirlers after her now.